You're listening to episode 31 of Fresh Floppies. We got a lot to cover, so let's get started. What's up to all our sidekicks and henchfolk out there on the Geek Nation? My name is Noel, and you are listening to Fresh Floppies. What is Fresh Floppies? It is a spoiler-free review show of current comic books that are coming out in stores today. I'm talking single issues, popularly known as floppies, because they wiggle and they flop. Single issues. It's a magazine. It's periodical. What are you going to do? Remember spinner racks? Anyway. Today I am flying solo because JD's on vacation. Woohoo! Good for him. But I didn't want to let this very full, stacked week of comics go by without just talking about a couple that are coming out. And the ones I want to talk about today, skew pretty heavy on the spoopy. So, I guess we could just jump right into it. Let's talk about... The first thing I want to talk about today is DC's Black Label Batman City of Madness #1. This is written and drawn by Christian Ward of, Black Bolt fame. He also just did Aquaman Andromeda with Ram V. But yeah, he is a very, very prominent artist, and this is the first thing that I've read of his that he wrote also. So how was it? Well, first of all, presentation. It's a Black Label book. It's a proper Black Label book. So it is super prestige format. So it's wider and taller than a normal perfect bound comic. So the canvas is larger for Christian Ward to do his craziness. The story, it was pretty good. I think this book is solid, but I think that I'm personally in the middle of a little bit of a Batman fatigue, and I felt similarly about a Black Label book that came out previously, the Gargoyle of Gotham, that was written and drawn by Rafael Grampa. Beautiful book, checks all the boxes, hits all the notes, but I'm a little worn out, I think personally, about reading grizzled Batman, like the typical he is the night, the shadows kind of tone of Batman, because naturally it's been happening for many decades, and it just kind of ebbs and flows with how well it works for me as a reader. So story wise, it was very well done, competently scripted. The pacing is wonderful, and it is a very pretty book. Some of the panel progression is a little avant-garde. So there's a few pages that I had to read twice to kind of make sure that I was tracking the action. But overall, strong book. If you are all about the bats, if you love Christian Ward, if you like out of continuity kind of creepy fun stuff in DC, because yes, I would probably call this a horror book. It gets into kind of the I really like Christian Ward. It's not a spoiler that, because it's on the cover, that this also does kind of dip into the Court of Owls villains, some of their lore, and I really like what he does with them as the central villain. I'm not exactly a giant fan of how he's portraying Batman, but everything that's building around it is pretty interesting so far and kind of cool looking. So this is where if you're in the Batman of it all and you want something a little like neon hued spooky Batman, this is a good book to pick up. This is Batman City of Madness #1. For me, it was fresh enough, but I feel like I'm going to be an outlier, and a lot of people are going to consider this very fresh. But yeah. That was book 1 of 1,000. Let's move to the next one. Before we get deep into the spooky, because there was a lot of horror books this week. It's almost as if it's October. I want to talk about Superior Spider-Man Returns. This was written by Dan Slott and Christos Gage, with art by Mark Bagley, Ryan Stegman, Humberto Ramos, and Giuseppe Camuncoli. If you recognize all those names, Those are all the people who were responsible for the previous Superior Spider-Man era of Amazing. This is an interesting book. I mean, first of all, go read Go read Superior Spider-Man. It's very intrinsically tied to Amazing Spider-Man that was happening before it and after it, but you can just grab Superior Spider-Man. I think there's an omnibus out now. It's very pretty. There's complete collections. It's all collected. It's on Infinity or whatever Marvel's digital app is called. Either way, read Superior Spider-Man, agnostic of the rest of this conversation, because it's awesome. This year is the 10th anniversary, and they're bringing it back in a very interesting way. So this is not a this is a mix of current story, past story, and then current repercussions for the previous story that was untold. It's not timey-wimey. It's not purely like, oh, this happened between the raindrops years ago and we're just now learning it now. It's a mix of a couple things, and it's firmly planted in Doc Ock's current continuity, which is it's pretty fun. Like I personally would have been a little disappointed if it was just like, this is what happened between the panels, and then we got like a million issues of that. I'm glad that Slott and Gage are placing this in the here and now. And leveraging other stuff around it. I'm very interested to see where this goes. But this issue itself, man, more than half of this was like a primer of or recap of Superior Spider-Man. It doesn't spoil the larger, it doesn't spoil the fun of that series, but it does kind of like get you caught up in a very fun and efficient way. It was to the point. It was so well done to the point that I thought, like, I read Superior Spider-Man and I remember most of it. There was a couple of parts where I had to go back and think, like, did this happen and they're recapping it, or is this new information? Because it was all very seamless and very well done. Kind of like this was a very easy read, in so much as like sometimes you just read things and it's like a waterfall. It just rolls. And this was a strong book. The art is great. I love all of these artists. I'm a big stan for Stegman and Giuseppe Camicoli. Umberto Ramos sometimes goes a little crazy with his panel layouts and just makes them really busy, but it all works here. And each artist kind of hands off duties per sequence or time period, so it's pretty seamless. This is a really strong number one. I like this a lot. It's going to continue into a series by some of this team. Most of this team. Oh yeah, Bagley. Slott and Bagley are continuing this into a new Superior Spider-Man series that's taking over the Spider-Man book that they're doing. But either way, this is fresh. I think this is fresh. It was a really fun Spidey book, and I think they haven't lost any of the little winky magic that made Superior Spider-Man really fun to read. This recaptured it pretty well, and I'm excited. I'm excited about this run. The next book I want to talk about is a DC book called Wesley Dodds' The Sandman #1. Now, a lot of people, when they hear Sandman, they immediately think of Neil Gaiman. However, there is a Golden Age hero called the Sandman. It's Wesley Dodds, who's I admittedly didn't know much about him, just knew the gas mask kind of look and the gun that shoots specific knockout gases, and he's a scientist, and et cetera, you know, classic noirish kind of The Shadow and Phantom style storytelling. This book itself, it's written by Robert Venditti with art by Riley Rossmo, and I guess it's kind of folding out of the Justice Society, the JSA book that's going on right now by Jeff Johns and Mikael Janin. That it's a perpetually a book, and I don't think enough people are reading it, but it started with a one shot called The New Golden Age. which reintroduced some of these JSA characters, and then there's been about 5 or 6 issues, and now there are a couple of standalone introductory miniseries with these characters, these Golden Age characters. The first one being Wesley Dodds, the Sandman, and then eventually we're going to get Jay Garrick, the Flash, and Alan Scott, Green Lantern, kind of reintroducing these Golden Age heroes for new audiences. So how was this? This was pretty fun. Riley Rossmo has a very cartoonish, exaggerated kind of style sometimes. Heroes have long faces, limbs are skinny. Like, it's a very specific kind of style, and there's been some times when he's been on books. I think the first one that comes to mind, or the most recent one that comes to mind, is he was on the Robin book, the Tim Drake Robin book, which is a detective action book, and it felt like for me personally, it felt like the wrong kind of marriage of art and story, because he has a style that is almost a little bit too exaggerated for a grounded level character like Tim Drake, whereas he also did Harley Quinn for a while, and I thought that was great because it is this very expressive style. So I'm a fan of his style. I just sometimes think that publishers will employ it in odd places, and here it really works. Like, it captures the 1940s gumshoe kind of aesthetic in a fresh way, and his panel layouts in this book are just phenomenal. Like, frankly, the scene may be boring, but how he's staging the characters and the panels is just very engaging. I liked this a lot more than I thought I would. Robert Venditti is hit or miss for me. I've liked a lot of his creator-owned stuff. And I even liked a lot of his Bad Idea stuff. But I really did not click with his Green Lantern. So it's just, some things stick with you. So he's not a deterrent of a writer for me as a reader, but he's also not like a draw. So I was coming into this not skeptical, but just kind of indifferent, and it really won me over. This is a very fresh, fun comic, and you do not need to know a damn thing about Wesley Dodds to just jump in and enjoy this tale from the 1940s. It's really fun stuff. I would recommend this if you have a slightly light week, or you're just looking for a new anything. Check it out. It's fun. So the next book I want to talk about, I didn't know existed. Sumerian Comics today released American Psycho the Comic, written by Michael Calero, with art by Piotr Kowalski. American Psycho, the 2000 film. Yeah, 2000 with blanking Batman, Christian Bale, with Christian Bale as Jason Bateman, Patrick Bateman. Yeah, see, I know it so well. I saw this movie in college, and everyone said it was the greatest thing in the world. I thought it was just fine. It didn't strike me the same way as I guess it struck others. And it's over the years, it's been worshipped on the level of like Scarface and Fight Club, and now the Todd Phillips Joker. But I think the point of getting, regardless of the movie's quality, it's more of the imagery has become more iconic than the actual content of the films. So when I saw that there's an American Psycho comic, I was like, okay. I rolled my eyes. I'm going to be honest. I rolled my eyes. But then JD was like, yeah, this was cool. So I decided to give it a shot. This is pretty cool. This book goes in a way that I wasn't expecting. It tells the story of somebody completely different. It's not about Patrick Bateman, but some other guy who is very tangentially connected to what Patrick Bateman was up to in 1987. And then it immediately after that kind of reveal, it immediately fast forwards to 2011, where we meet somebody completely new in a club, and stuff transpires then. I have no idea what's going on so much plot-wise. I mean, the story is clear right now, but as to the implications of where it goes from here, mystery. And it's a good mystery. This is, I think, a lesser take on take a lesser approach to this property in comic book form would be a retelling or a side story that we didn't see in the movie, something a little bit more not only IP based, but I mean creatively maybe a little easier. And this took a turn, and I actually really appreciated it. I think this was pretty fresh. I would not have touched this comic if JD didn't give me a heads up, and I appreciate that. This was pretty slick. Will it continue? Who knows? But I'm peaked. I'm peaked. My interest is there. So I would if you're a fan of this movie, yeah, rock and roll. Give this a shot. The art is fine. The writing is very solid. The layouts and clarity of story is on point. Yeah, this is pretty fresh. It's American Psycho #1, written by Michael Calero with art by Peter Kowalski. Check it out. Another IP comic that came out today. But less of a surprise because there have been comics about this movie and this series of movies for decades now. And arguably, not many of them have been very good. So I'm talking about Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness Forever #1, written by Tony Fleeks with art by Justin Greenwood, came out today. So I love the Evil Dead movies. I'm a big fan. I love the Ash Williams character. This in comics though, I've dipped in here and there, and honestly, I've just never really stuck with any of them. They're all more bombastic than fun. They're loud as opposed to being melodic. They're comics about caricatures, and it's fun as a gag, but it never really sustains my interest. So when a new Army of Darkness book gets released or announced, I'm just like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll try it. But this one, written by Tony Fleece, who has written a lot of things that I've enjoyed. He is the co-creator of Stray Dogs. He is the co-creator of Local Man. Some solid stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'll give this a shot. And then I heard the pitch. If anyone has seen Army of Darkness, maybe the theatrical version, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie, Ash Williams uses the book to get back to his 1993 time. And then he doesn't do it completely right, and a witch and monster shows up and he fights him, and yay, hero move. That's the theatrical version. The director's cut that was released on home video and other places was he did the ritual incorrectly because he's an idiot and ended up sleeping for 100 extra years and woke up to a post-apocalyptic, evil, ravaged world with a giant beard, Rip Van Winkle style. But that was an unofficial, non-canonical ending to the movie. This comic is the continuation of that non-canonical ending. So we're talking like niche of a niche of a niche. And then this comic runs with it. So I was like, okay, that might be funny. The first half really just recaps the third movie, shows you exactly what happened immediately after the film and him waking up in the future, but then takes a turn that I was genuinely giddy by. It was almost confusing. Like we get in the last third of this book, in the last 5 pages, we get a smash cut that almost made me turn two pages back to be like, I'm sorry, is a page skipped? Is there a scene transition I didn't catch? Is something going on? And what Fleece does is he actually recreates specific scenes from both movies with word for word dialogue to kind of root a fan into what he's doing. And then there's a little post-credit scene, and I'm like, holy shit, this is really funny. This is really slick, and this is a really interesting thing to do with not only the theatrical version, but you've got this often talked about or seen in fan circles director's cut, and he's playing with both. And guys, this was the best Army of Darkness comic I've picked up and read maybe ever. I was as a fan who doesn't care for the comics that much, I was shocked. I'm going to read the hell out of this. I think it was very funny. I think it was very well done. And I am perpetually impressed by this creative team. The art, too, by Justin Greenwood, awesome. Straight up awesome. It is a style that is not slavish to the actors and imagery that came before it or that it's referencing, but it also is just close enough and homage enough to kind of keep you in that tone. It's not unlike what, if anybody liked that, what was like season 8 Buffy comics, Georges Chanty was the artist for most of it, and he got facsimile of likenesses down really well to the point where it was still his art. He wasn't just like image tracing actors, but you could tell each character was who they were referencing. It was very well done. That's very much like this. This book is awesome. I think this was fresh as hell. But I know it's not going to be for everybody. So do with that what you will. That's Army of Darkness Forever #1 by Dynamite Comics, Tony Fleece and Justin Greenwood. One of the first comics I ever bought was an issue of Captain America by Mark Grunwald. Artist is escaping me, but the cover was Captain America as a werewolf, hence the Capwolf saga. And good or bad, I've been obsessed with it ever since. So when I saw that they are doing a Capwolf and the Howling Commandos miniseries by Marvel Comics, written by Stephanie Phillips with art by Carlos Magno, I pulled it. Yeah, I read it. And yeah, I dug it. This book is stupid, but awesome stupid. I mean, stupid in like the cool way that kids are like, that's dumb. I love it. Do kids say that? Doesn't matter. Either way, Capwolf and the Howling Commandos #1. This is a World War II story where the Howling Commandos and Captain America are fighting the Nazis and punching them in the face and stuff. Sergeant Fury gets hurt and can't lead the Commandos, so he asks Cap to do it for him, and Dum Dum Duggan's like, nah, fam. This was fun. And then, werewolves happen. And it's got a pretty fun cliffhanger. This is a perfect Marvel Halloween book. The art by Carlos Magno is some of it's a little, especially the war stuff, is a little muddy. But there's a couple of panels in here that are just so good. There's a couple of splash pages that are great. And he really does excellent facial acting, especially in a lot of the dialogue scenes. You can really there's a couple of sequences in here that it could have been a silent comic and it would have been just as effective. This was very well done. This is a wonderful, spoopy, Halloween-y superhero story. I think it's a 4-issue miniseries, and that's perfect. Just dip in and out. This will be a fun trade. And yeah, it feeds on my little member berries about the first Captain America comic, the first comic I picked up. So anytime I see Captain America werewolf, I'm in, and this was no exception. I'm just glad that it wasn't horrible to read. It was pretty wonderful. So I would say pretty fresh. This was pretty fresh. The last book I want to talk about, read a couple today, but the last book I want to talk about is Operation Sunshine. This is a new #1 by Dark Horse Comics. It's with a script by Henry Zebrowski and Marcus Parks, with art by David Rubin. This was a blind pickup. I had heard about it as being a kind of a different twist on the vampire story, and they were right. We are introduced to two blood bugs, which is lower level vampires who were just turned. They don't really have any special abilities or powers. They're just people who can't hang out in the sunlight, can change, and need to feed on blood, and are mortal, but not invulnerable. And then you've got OVs, which is original vampires, the heavies, and it's two disparate characters whose stories kind of intertwine in a playful way. This was fun. I think this was more fun for the subversive world building, slight comedic tone, but never strays away from its horror roots. I especially like the second character we meet. His name is escaping me, but he's a middle manager nobody who happens to be 6 months into being a blood bug, looking for friends and continuing his day job, hides from the sun. His coworkers hate him. There's this middle management corporate ennui that is is kind of like pasted over his very real problems of, oh, now you're actually, you're a vampire now. But his level of denial is really just very fun to read. And then they team up together, or they're, unwittingly teamed up together in what promises or suggests to be kind of a fun, horror infused little odd couple action comedy. This was fun. This was really fun. Operation Sunshine #1. It was pretty darn fresh. I'm not familiar with Henry Zebrowski or Marcus Parks as writers, but this was a really strong start. I do like David Rubin, his work with Matt Kindt on a couple of things. So yeah, this was a nice surprise, spoopy as well. It's October, so like horror comics are all over. I have a tenuous relationship with horror comics sometimes. Like as a genre, I don't necessarily think that comic books do horror a service, because I feel like part of horror, the experience is also it's very visceral, it's auditory, it requires sometimes sound cues, music, like it's a much more encompassing thing to really work. And for me, that's even harder in a comic book page, because creating that atmosphere, you're a little limited. The sandbox is smaller. But these books I talked about today, and some of the books that I've read, not all fall under that. It's just, I think I don't associate horror with comics as the place, or I don't associate comic books as the place to experience the best horror. But I'm totally wrong, because there's some great horror comics out there. So I'm constantly kind of like looking and seeing, and some great ones today. The Operation Sunshine was fun. Capwolf was silly. Army of Darkness was hilarious. American Psycho shocked me. Another couple that came out today. We've got The Devil That Wears My Face. I didn't get a chance to read it yet, by David Pepos. The second issue of The Cull by Kelly Thompson and Mateo Dia-Luis. First issue we talked about, and it was awesome. And then there's a couple of other like fun things that came out this week. A new book by Brian Bucoletto and Stefano Simoni. Yeah, Stefano Simoni. About midlife, how to be a hero at 50. And then more Amazing Spider-Man. It's a thick week, guys. It's a thick week of comics. I read as many as I could. We talked about way too many, but that's what we're here for. The hope is that any of these books that we talked about today sound mildly interesting to you, and on your way to the shop, you're like, oh, I'm going to try that out because I heard some randos on the internet say that was fun. In perpetuity. So I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. Next week, JD will be back, and this will be a fuller experience with more than one voice. But in the meantime, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If there's something that you would love us to review or talk about that's coming up, email us, cultpopgo@gmail.com. Also, do not forget to join us live Wednesday nights on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all the streaming johns for the Cult Pop podcast. Tonight's episode is going to be a great one. We have independent comic creator Carmen Costa coming in to talk about his fully funded and very exciting new comic book called Proctor on the show. And we're going to talk about our favorite indie comics, independent creator-owned comics and stuff. So yeah, join us for that. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Have a wonderful one. We'll catch you later. Got my Messiah impression. I think I got him nailed down. I wanna tell you
Thank you for listening to the Cult Pop Network, home to podcasts, live shows, and a whole lot of fun stuff for every flavor of fan. Follow us wherever you find your favorite podcasts, and be sure to join us live every Wednesday night at youtube.com/CultPopGo at 8 p.m. Eastern. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you'll know when we drop new Thunder Rounds and episodes of Fresh Floppies, a spoiler-free show about single-issue comics released each week. Until then, we'll talk at you later.